everyone. I'm Elliot. For those of you who don't know me, I'm one of the account managers here at Affinity. Yeah, I'll not go into too much detail about Affinity because I think from the looks of it, most of you have been here before. But yeah, we do primarily IT support and just any sort of IT related projects. Any hardware and software involved, Microsoft 365 and training, which we get heavily involved in with Andy and Viv. And then we also do telecoms, so professional phone systems, phone lines of broadband, and then lots of various different electrical services, which again I'll not go too much into. But yeah, I've been working with Andy and Viv since it was just about the start of lockdown last year. Originally, just helping people with the sort of change to Teams more than anything, because it was one thing we were getting hundreds of requests for every single week. So it just made sense to work with these guys and provide the amazing training which Viv and Andy do. So yeah, I'll pass across to Viv and we'll get things started.
Hi, I'm not called trainer. My name is Viv. For us, Andy's in the corner as well. Just to let you know, we're from the IT trainer. We work with Affinity. We do all the standard Office training packages, but we do bespoke training and obviously everything Office 365. And to be honest, that's where I kind of live these days, everything Office 365. So that's about us. Let me immediately jump in and share. Just before, when I start to share here, I've just noticed you mightn't have the latest version installed yet, but Microsoft are still constantly updating Teams. I know this is about Microsoft List today, and that's what we're going to focus on. But now, if you actually share content, you can choose to have a different presenter mode, and one of the presenter modes that they're giving us is the ability to stand out. And when I'm standing out, that means I'm still on the screen when I'm presenting as well, and you can see me. So they've also got other options going on there. So I'm just going to share at the minute, and I'm going to get into sharing my screen. I may well tell you there is 2 other new things that have just come into Teams as well. The way that they put people on the screen when it comes to the Teams meeting is one thing that has changed. The ability to pop out, which is here, is another thing. So if you've got multi-windows, you can actually put yourself in another window and see your presentation. I think that's a big change that people have been asking for. And 2 other things that they've brought in. When you start a Teams meeting now in your calendar, you don't need to actually send it to somebody before you can save it and get the Teams meeting invite. The reason that that's now in place is because you can actually get everybody to register for it. So you can actually set up a webinar style meeting, and you can ask everybody to register, and it would be like doing an Eventbrite. So that's brand new this week that has come in. So it's just another little thing that they're constantly working on. And if you've got the newest version, you'll see now that your settings have been moved to here. And you're out of office now, and this is the last thing I want to tell you about on Teams before we do anything else, is you're out of office, and your status message here is actually now you can actually schedule it as an out of office. And this out of office also synchronizes with your Outlook calendar. So you no longer have to set your out of office for Teams and your out of office for Outlook. You can do it in one place. So again, that's brand new this week. So I just wanted to highlight those things because they are constantly on the go of updating items, in Teams especially. So we're talking about lists today. Microsoft lists have been around for quite some time. However, before this, they were called SharePoint lists. And I think because they're such a versatile and powerful little tool that people didn't really know about a lot, that Microsoft in the last year has brought it out and brought it to be a separate app within the Office 365 environment, but also to give you the ability to connect it into your Teams environment. So that's what it is. So if you've used the SharePoint list at all before, it's the same thing. It has been fancied up. It's been made snazzier. There's more features on it. It's a bit more user-friendly with the new modern interface, etc. But it is still at the back end a Microsoft SharePoint list. In addition, you can access these lists from an app on your mobile phone. At the minute, it is only Apple devices. So it's only iOS, so iPads and iPhones. It is coming to Android later this year that you can manage, and you can do all these items on lists from your mobile phone. So the question is, what is a list here? It's kind of like I would compare it every time I talk about it, and we see in a second a bit more. I would compare it to be a halfway house between an Excel and a database. So if you're working with Excel sheets with lots of data that lots of people have to access and update and have a look at. So it's kind of that data source somewhere, not necessarily, I'm not talking about those Excel sheets where you've got lots and lots of complicated formulas in. We're talking about the Excel sheets where you're keeping a list of something, where you're keeping track of something and people are updating. If you want to make that more available to people online in Teams, not as a more robust, you can move it to a SharePoint list or a list. It's less than a database. So it's a halfway house between an Excel and a database. So it has a lot of the characteristics of a database. It has data validation, and it's got things like this, and it can connect in and out of your environment. But it allows you to set up this sort of tables that you would set up in a database without having to go through the rigmarole and the process of setting up a whole database. Where you get it is if you log into your office.com, so www.office.com, and when you're there, it should appear on your icons and your applications down this left-hand side. However, if it doesn't appear as you scroll up and down the first time, it's this little icon here. You can always get all of your apps by clicking on your app launcher, which slides it out, and then it might appear here. And if not, you click all apps and you get the lists. When you get lists, this is the first place that you'll come to. Now, I've got a few in here. You'll potentially have absolutely no lists in when you start for the first time. So let's see what we do here. What I'm going to try to do is bring you through creating a list and then start looking at some of the key features. And then we'll have a quick chat about how it talks to and interacts with the other applications within the 365 environment. So firstly, if I hit the button for new list, it brings me up this screen that's going to appear in a second. And it allows me to create a list, give it a name. It allows me to, hello, Microsoft, what's happening this morning? It's gone a little bit slow for me here, so let me hit refresh. Let me explain what's happening low as well. You can choose to create a list in a group, or you can choose to create a list that is just your list. If it's just your personal list, as in it's something that you're working on, you can still share that with other people. However, if you create it in a team, then that means that it's stored within that team environment and people can access it from within Teams. And that's useful to know. So we start with three options here. We can take an existing list that you already have and you can make a copy of it. So you've got a 2020 list and you want to make a 2021 list. Great. You can take it from an Excel sheet. The Excel sheet has to be in a table format, and then it will bring all that data in with all the column headings automatically and allow that data to be translated into a new Microsoft list. And thirdly, you can start with a blank list. You can see here we've got a batch of templates that Microsoft have provided. So for example, if you think to yourself, oh, this might actually request work for an asset management one. So what they do is they show you what the template is and they show you some what will be temporary data in there. When you create this from a template, you don't actually get the data that they've provided here in it. It's just showing you this is what it can look like. You can put in a photo, a tag, a manufacturer, a status. And so this is what they have in terms of templates. So you can decide to use a template if you desire. I'm going to go back to here and I'm just going to go for a blank list because I want to show you the features of adding things. So we're going to go for list for, this is May 2021 test list. The next thing you get to choose is give it a description if you need to, or if you think it's useful. You choose a color scheme for it, just the background color, and you choose a little icon for it. And then you decide where it's saved to. So do you want to save it to your own lists and then share it with other people? Or do we want to save it to one of the other teams? So these are sites stroke Microsoft SharePoint, sites stroke Microsoft Teams that have been set up. I'm going to create this in one of our teams, which is called our demo team. And when I create the list, it brings me to the list area. And with that, it's just a very, very simple list when it gets started. It's just got one column called title. The title column, when we see it here up on our screen, is a column that has to exist in every single list. You can rename it, but you cannot remove it. So in some cases, I'll just use it as title. In other cases, I'll rename it. I'll come back in a second to show you how to do things like renaming and various things like this. But one of the first things you're wanting to do, if you haven't used one of their templates, or you haven't brought it in from an existing list or from an Excel sheet, is to add columns. And let's have a look at the options we have for adding columns. These are all the default ones. Single line of text, it is exactly what it says in the tin, some of these. So just a line of text, I think it's got a limit on the number of characters of around 256. Multiple lines of text has got a limit as well, but you're talking in the thousands of characters, if not 10,000. So depending on how much information you want to be stored in these columns, that's what you can do. We'll come back to a few of these in a second. Number. Again, it has to be a number and you can choose things. So let's just say add one that's called line of text. And I'm going to go for full name. And we can choose from here and change it if we did it wrong. We can choose a default value if you want. If you need to on your description, you can put in a description. So if you've got a column that is a little bit more, it's a bit awkward, it doesn't make sense, you might want to explain what people put in there, you can do so. You can calculate from another column as well. Those are features that you might use more in the number columns. And down here, you can choose a maximum number of characters. You can require that it requires information. So if you have a column that has to have information in, which you don't have, by the way, when you're using Excel easily, you can actually say it has to contain information. You can also enforce unique values. So if something has got a unique code, or you don't want the same phone number or the same email address typed in twice, you can do that. And then you've got various things down here. So there's your more options. I'm just going to do a simple column put in here. And it adds a column. I'm then going to go and I'm going to put in a few more columns here. So I'm going to choose, say, for example, let's go for another one that's quite simple. I'm not going to even put the multiple lines. Let's put in the multiple lines of text and call it that. Again, more options. We can actually allow it to be rich text. We allow it to be actually add changes to any existing text and again, require. So every time you create a column, you'll get used to these. You can look at more options. A few more that we're going to just add in here, and then we'll see what we can do with this data. You can put in a location. So you can ask for a location. Show link columns in the current view. So if you put in various things, it can actually create a location for you. So again, that's quite a useful one if you have any sort of location on there. Number. So let's just put in a number one. Again, what type is here? Number. Preview. You can choose to have a dollar symbol on it, or a pound symbol on it, or anything else that you want on it. How many decimal places, a default value, and you've got maximum numbers. So with this, you can even put, it has to be between 0 and 100. So you've automatically got a lot of data validation coming into these sort of columns. So I'll just cancel that one. So I'll just put a number and just leave it as it is. You also have other options as well with these. You've got a currency one. So if you want a currency like that, we can actually put a currency in, and then it will automatically put a currency with it. And again, options allowing what type does it require, maximum, minimum as well. And a couple of the really other interesting ones that you can have in here. You can put in a date and time. So you can choose to include time or not. And you can choose friendly format. Now, friendly format gives you the option of due today, or this week, or next week. So you can turn that on or off. You can have a default value of today's date on everything that goes in. And as I said, you can include the time. So that's date and time goes in if you need to, and you can put multiple of those in. Person. So this is a person in the organization. Has to be within your organization, and you can allow a selection of groups. So I'm just going to do that and put in a person one. I just want to add a few extra columns here to give you indication of everything it does. So we're going to put in a yes no column. Choice, yeah, well, we will call it yes no. Again, what's the default value? Again, does it need to have information in it? Well, if it has a default value, it's always going to have some sort of information in it. I'm going to put in a choice rather than just a yes, no. And the choice allows you to put in as many options as you want. So we're going to go for option 1, option 2, option 3, And here we have got, oh, why did it lose that? Just think I'm moving a little bit too fast for it at times. So we'll do this again. And while I'm doing it, I'll explain. You've got colors sitting here with these. They're default colors that Microsoft have put in. For all of those, you can press the little button at the side here, and you can change the color or choose to have no fill. So if you've got good, bad, and indifferent sort of ones or levels of things or want to highlight things, you can use your color code options for choices. So that's a really useful option. You can add more choices if you want. You can remove choices if you only wanted to. If you say that you can add values manually, this allows you to have the sort of drop-down menu where they can choose other. So yes, it might give them option A, B, C, and D, because those are the key options, but it'll also allow them to put in option E if they need to. And you can choose a default value for this as well. You can also choose it whether it's a drop-down menu or radio buttons, and you can also allow for multiple selections. So you can say you can select all that apply. So again, a really powerful little column that you can put in. I want to add one more, and then let's add some data to it. We can put in a couple here. We can put in a hyperlink, so we can link to something within the organization, and you can choose a hyperlink here. And they've now actually split this up, because up until recently, hyperlink was hyperlink or image, but now they've actually put image in as a separate column. And before, that image one caused problems if you're using the Power Platform, but they've actually just literally recently changed that to actually bring that out. So now I've got a column of information. What can I do with it? And we'll come up to these menus in a minute, but what can I do with this column of information? Well, firstly, I can press new. And if I press new, I can enter new information in here. So I'm going to put in a title. It did say if I do need to edit anything or do want to change this, say if I wanted this to be unique information, I can use the drop-down menu. When I use the drop-down menu, I can sort it A to Z or Z to A. I can also filter. So similar again to an Excel sheet. I can look at the settings and I can rename it. I cannot remove this column. Every other column I can remove. If I want to go in here, I can edit it. And then there is an option under the edit. There was an option under the edit where you can delete, but I cannot do it here. So I'm going to just go for this to be unique value. It doesn't have to be in every case unique, but let's just call it that. It still stays in the background as title. So let's put in a unique value here. We'll call this record 1. We'll put in Andy's name. Hi, Andy, you're getting your details put in here. We can put in a number, put in a currency. Obviously, today's date's put in there automatically. Now, let's show you what happens with person or groups. It has to be within your organization, but I can actually add Andy to it. And then that means that that person is used throughout it. Yes, no, I'm going to choose a choice here from a drop-down menu. I can put in a link here, which I'm not going to. Can add an image here. It's going to bring up my little bar, so I'm just going to close that down again to add an image. And you can also add attachments to it. When this is in, we've got this information. If you notice here, it's immediately turned the person in, and it shows their image of the picture that they have on their account, and it's actually connected into the 365. So as you can see, I can start creating records on here. When I create records on here, I can sort and I can filter. I can group. This here has a limit of something like 2 million records could go in. I think it might even be more. So you can sort, you can filter, you can group by, you can put totals in certain columns and currencies and numbers on things like this. So it's very, very powerful in terms of that. They've added a few extra things recently. They've given us the ability to comment on it, to share the thing, to share the selected item. So this actually shares this item with people. Doesn't share the whole sheet, it shares an individual item with people. So that's a similar sort of share link as you would find with a document. We can add a comment to this. So we can actually add a comment to a record, and we can say this is the one I'm talking about, and people put comments on it, and we can actually mention people as well, and we can do that in here. Andy, this is for you. And we can send the comments in here, and it creates this sort of comment system on here. and it can be deleted and replied to as well. So we've got all of those options to do. We can actually do things like group by person. We have also got under the choice field, you've got nice little colors. So you can actually do, you can see your things grouped by choice, and then you've got your conditional formatting going on. If you've got lots of records, you can edit it in the grid view. And when you edit in grid view, it opens it up like a table. And that's quite useful if you've got key things to very, very quickly update. A few key things to talk about though here. If I get new and I take this up here, if I take the link and this here view here, this is all items of web view list origin, that up at the top, that let's do it. That list, that link up here, that link is a link that actually is a standalone mini form for adding items to this list. So you could set up this Libly list with all the information you needed, but you don't need to give them access to the list. They'll need access to get to the list. But what you can actually do is just give them the link, which it should actually come up in just a mini form on this page. And that allows you to have a data entry form for that. And on that data entry form, you can actually come over to the side and you can edit this form. So configure which columns you want, configure the layout. So I can choose edit columns and I can say, I don't want to have the attachments column available. I want it on my form, but I don't want it, I want it on the list, but I don't want it available on this form. So I can edit the forms. I can configure the layout, what question comes first. And if you use the Power Apps, you can actually turn it into a Power Apps form with lovely snazzy little buttons and colors and a color scheme with it as well. But as we can see here, oh, it's just brought me into the list this time. Usually you can actually, if you open it in a separate page, that link gives me the option to actually just have this data entry form for people. We can integrate this and do other things with it, because what we can actually do is we can automate. Microsoft Automate, we've done a few sessions on this. The videos are available on the Affinity IT YouTube channel. But if you actually, you can set up a rule from here. Now, under the automate is creation automatic flows. So Microsoft automates processes. And my easiest way of explaining what an automate is a bit like your out of office. It's a rule. It's something that happens out automatically. Now, you can create very complex automates, and that allows you to do lots of things in approval processes and everything like that. However, even on a list, you can make a very simple automate. You can set a reminder because there is a date column in here, and it will actually open up and say, right, I'm going to use the Microsoft Automate within your list to set a reminder. So you could say 1 week before an event, I need to get an email about it. If something goes overdue, I need to get an email about it. And how you do that is through the automate process up here. Now, if you open up the full automate environment, you can do a lot more with it. But this even does it. Automatic default template from Microsoft, get an email reminder a number of days in advance of the date in the column. So first thing it's going to ask me to do when it gets ready to do it, it's going to sign me into SharePoint, which I'm already signed in. It's going to sign me into Office 365, which is signed in, and notifications. Great. So I'm going to take it here. I'm going to give it a name of get a reminder and how many days beforehand. 7 days beforehand, please. Remind me of that line in the SharePoint list. So that's now been created. And so every item, when it comes to it, 7 days beforehand, I would get a reminder about it. And I could set up multiple versions of that, a month in advance, 2 weeks in advance, a week in advance, and more. And you can go into the flow part of it and you can edit those. Other things you can do from here, you can filter. So you can filter according to, there's only one item, so it won't show it. We can actually change my view type over here. We can go for a compact list rather than a big list. We can also go for a gallery view. And with the gallery view, we can then choose it and say, what item do we want in this gallery view? So because I've changed it to gallery, I'd be able to change that format to view, and I would be able to put Andy up here and the picture of Andy up here. Or if I've used an image in a record, I would be able to do that. So formatting the current view allows me to change what it looks like. I'm going to edit this card. and I'm going to say, what image do I want? I want the person one on here, and I show a preview of the person's image. So we could do that. And so this is all possible to make it a lovely little designer and a card designer. On top of that, we also have various other things. You can edit views and go more in depth, and you can actually create personal views that you want, and you can change the default view that everybody wants. Now, what I want to mention about that, because lists can be interesting, you want people to access it, but you only want them to see certain items. So let me explain what you can do with this. If I go to create a new view, I'm going to make it the public view, and I'm going to go for certain items. And I'm going to just create I don't want it, I can make a calendar one if I want, if there's dates. I can make a gallery one, which I just had here. I just want a standard list view. I haven't put the E in there, but that's okay. And with that, I can come in here, that's a new view, and I can go and I can set it as default, and I can edit. When I edit it, it goes old school for me, and which is fine. But what I want to explain here is there's a few things you can do around this. Firstly, I'll put my spelling correct. There's a few things you can do around this, and one of them being you can choose which columns you want to show, which is great. So it has all, and you can make this a default view, and you can stop people using other views as well in this. So this is the old style look of SharePoint lists. So you come to that. But down here, you can sort, you can filter, you can group, you can put totals in, you can put items, etc. But what you can actually do, and this is one of the really powerful ones, under your filter, you can actually put in as many filters as you want. So we would want to have more filters we can do here. But we can actually do and say when the item created by is equal to, and you can even use me. Now, what the powerful thing about using me here is if I use me and say created equal to me, when somebody else comes to use this, it's actually going to give them them. So if Andy logs in, he will only see records created by me. Or if you put it that it's allocated to a certain person, you could use allocated to as it, and it will only show the records that have been allocated to them, or only show the records for department if the department is equal to the department of the person. So you can actually put filters in for and or to make it narrower or closer. Now I'm aware I've only got a few minutes left, so let's pop back to here and let me show you what you can also do. We mentioned that you can actually recreate these and make the forms very fancy in Power Apps. We have mentioned that you can actually set reminders in Flow. You can also, while it's coming across the Teams, you can also, one of the other things that suggests that you can probably look at when you're starting to do it, you can take the results of a form. So a Microsoft form comes in and you can use Automate to grab all the information from that form and post it into a SharePoint list. I was working with someone yesterday that they wanted to have a new starter form in their organization. And when the new starter form was filled in, it filled it in the SharePoint list. It sent it off for approval to the manager. When the manager approved, it updated the details in that list. And it's somewhere secure and easy to access from here. The other thing we can also do with these is in Teams. We've already got lists here, I think, but let's just add another list. So let's just add this one. So that list that we created, we can create one within Teams, or we can connect to one that we've already created. So in Teams here, I'm going to quickly, if it decides to run at any sort of standard speed, you just search in your favorite apps up here, or it's in your list for lists, and then, yeah, eventually, here it is, because I've used it before. The first time you use it in a team or a channel, it actually says we have to install it. After that, it's a little bit easier, and it says we're getting it ready, and then I can choose which list that I would like to show in Teams. This means that the views that I've created, the filters that I've created, and even all of those reminders can all be built in, and I can then start to see which is it within my Teams environment. I don't have to have people going across and logging into an app on the 365. So, and as I see from here, we can even create a list from here. If you've got a big enough monitor and screen, it's not a bad thing to do for here, but even if you've created it properly in the other one, there we are, there's my list, or you can get any SharePoint link, and that list that we've just done, I've now got made available to me within the Teams environment. And just before I come back to you, I do want to let it load and show that. Just by the way, on a lot of my demos, when I'm sharing my screen, Teams doesn't seem to move quite as fast as if I'm doing it normally in my own environment. So as you can see here, we can do that. And if we got different views, we can even look at those views from here and the filters from here. We can pop it out and we can add new items straight from within my Teams app. So that's an overview. As you can probably tell, there's an awful lot that this can do within your environment. And if you have any questions, I'm still available, but that's just done.
Nothing in the chat, Viv.
Okay.
I've actually got one, Viv.
Yes.
Just thinking for what we use. So I'm quite new to this anyway, but you know, with Microsoft Forms, is there a way to get responses from a survey you've done on Falls to drop into one of the lists then?
Surveys drop automatically to Excel, but what you can actually do is use the Automate and use Microsoft Power Automate. And there's a trigger in there that says when a new form is submitted, the next stage is get the response details. And then the third item on it would be create a new item. And then
Right.
you just choose your list and you just match up your information coming from that and put it straight into the list. So yes, it's very possible.
Right.
That's the way I do it for an awful lot of people, because a form response you either have to go through one by one, and not everybody can necessarily see it who needs to see it. So that's one negative thing with the forms. Or if you want to share it out, it's coming out in an Excel format, which just isn't as user friendly. Any other questions? Oh, we did forget to say at the start, which is fine. This was recorded, but Elliot, I think you know that from the thing, but Elliot will then put it up on YouTube if you want to go back over it as well, and you'll have a link to it.
Okay. Thanks, Viv. That's grand.
Thank you very much for your time today.
Yeah. Cheers, Viv. It was great as usual.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.